Gotta start somewhere, right? Hey yo everybody, and welcome to something a little bit different from what I usually do. Today I'm going to be talking about a little game called Sonic the Hedgehog. I won't be going too deep into the details of Sonic's conception. I won't be going into the game itself, with my opinions going stage by stage, or in the Sonic's franchise's case, zones. But before I do that, how about I talk about how Sonic plays in the game itself? I don't know why the hell I did that, but I did. Good thing those boxes are fucking sturdy, right?
Sonic the Hedgehog is a 2D platformer advertised with an emphasis on speed and keeping that built-up momentum going. The game is designed around only using one button, which maps all the face buttons, A, B, and C, on a Genesis controller for this example, to jump. The other main action you can perform is a roll by pressing down on the D-pad while running. This is how you build up a lot of speed and break through specific walls to find secrets. Unlike future titles, there's no spin dash option in the original version of Sonic 1, which can take a little getting used to, but the level design thankfully doesn't need it in future re-releases. Also only in this version is a cap on Sonic's ground speed that you can only get past by rolling. This would end up getting removed in Sonic 2. There are also rings spread throughout the game that Sonic uses to protect himself. Touch an enemy or hazard, and Sonic will drop whatever rings he has, and you can scramble to pick them back up to protect yourself. Oh, and there's these rings that also serve another purpose, which I'll explain in a little bit. So, how do them zones hold up since 1991? Probably the most iconic zone in the Sonic franchise's entire history. I think we're overdue in coming back here, Sega, though Mania's Green Hill Zone was good though. This zone shows off in good fashion the core concept of Sonic's level design with multiple pathways to get to the goalpost to clear each act. Though in Act 1, there's a chance that... Yep! Sometimes you can end up running into a glitch that doesn't scroll the screen in time, and Sonic hits the kill plane that hasn't scrolled down by going fast enough through this tube. At the end of each Act 1 and 2, with the exception of the last zone, there's a special giant ring waiting for you if you get to the end of each act with 50 plus rings in hand. Jumping into this ring will take you to a special stage before going to the next act. It's in these special stages that you can nab the special collectibles of the franchise, the Chaos Emeralds. Unlike the rest of the main franchise, there's only 6 gems to get, and only 10 total chances to access the special stages at all, which is kinda bullshit. Then again, this was 1991, so it was probably some sort of arcade-like design to them somewhere. Oh, and there's Eggman, also known as Robotnik, whichever you prefer, though I'll be using Eggman personally at the end of every third act except for the last zone. This boss, he's the good old Wrecking Ball boss that you probably see a lot. He goes down kinda quickly, what with that invincibility box right before the boss to cheese the thing. So this is where Sonic's multi-tiered level design starts to go down the shitter. This zone has a much slower pace to it, what with the hazards that go in slow cycles and not that many opportunities to build and keep up speed. This is also the start of the game starting to drop on the quality of the color palette, primarily using a lot of purple and some garish green for destructible blocks, moving platforms, and pillars. Thankfully, there's a shortcut or two throughout the zone you can take to avoid some of the slowest part, though there's one particular part that comes to mind that I have no idea how to speed up. You just wait, and wait, and wait. This particular zone starts the trend on Sonic games having at least one zone based on using bumpers to mess with progression, though it's not particularly egregious here. While there's plenty of room to build up speed and momentum throughout the zone, it's mostly moving platforms and hazards that are going to slow you down here, especially the vertical sections with the slow-moving platforms that go up and down. There's also the first point in the game to introduce an enemy that can't be jumped on, and you have to do a roll to destroy them. Ultimately, zone kinda exists, in my opinion anyway. So there's one particular trend you have here in Labyrinth Zone is what basically no one likes about most games, let alone Sonic games. The water level. This good old labyrinth brings you slow down and a drowning theme that still makes people extremely anxious to this day. Although there are plenty of opportunities throughout the zone to restore your air supply through large bubbles. Is it bad that I find Labyrinth Zone to have the second best color palette in the game after Green Hill Zone? That one's probably just me. Anyway, here's a fun tip for you regarding Act 1. Did you know there's this shortcut you can access that will bypass most of the act? Though if you're taking this shortcut, you miss out on a chance at a special stage because there's only 49 rings you can collect on that route. That is, unless you're playing the 3DS version, which adds a ring to this one specific spot in the shortcut so you can get access to the special stage. Why wasn't this added to the mobile version? Anyway, moving on from Act 1, it's mostly a lot of slow-paced gimmicks throughout the zone. And then there's the boss of the zone, which instead of a regular boss fight, you have to chase Eggman to the top of this vertical section with spears and fireball hazards littered throughout it. As you can see in this footage I got pretty lucky, but this can be one of the most annoying sections in the game, especially if you die in the chase, as the only protection you will get is a shield power-up. Yep, no rings, just a shield. Have fun. From what I've said, you could probably see why this was the worst zone in the game. And the difficulty decides to drop with Starlight Zone, with way more focus on speed-based sections with only 2 enemy types in this particular zone. This is probably the second best zone in the game for enjoying sections of speed and, also just playing it. Also, it's oddly the only other zone in the game with destructible walls you roll into. I don't know why that is. One thing to keep in mind with the bomb enemy here is that it's completely indestructible and isn't destroyed when you run into it when you're invincible. The boss of this zone is my particular favorite, as there's multiple ways to damage him, whether it's using zone bombs against him, using the bombs to spring you up, or just keeping the platform level and jumping at him. And with the difficulty drop in Starlight Zone comes the difficulty spike for Scrap Brain Zone, with lots of hazards and plenty of moving platforms. While Act 1 can be fairly tricky, it's Act 2 that decides to go ham with hazards everywhere. One cool thing about each act is that it actually takes place in a different location on Scrap Brain Zone. Act 1 is outside, Act 2 is inside, and Act 3 is fucking Labyrinth Zone all over again? Okay, whose bright idea was it to reuse the worst zone in the game for the last act of the game? At least there's a massive shortcut you can take at the beginning of the act that will bypass the majority of Act 3. Then again, you could fall down to the main part of the act if you mess up the shortcut. There's no boss at the end of this act though, there's just springs that will take you up to... Oh hey, it's the final boss, and they decide to take away all your rings from Act 3, if you had any. You don't necessarily need them though, as the boss only really does 2 things. 2 pistons will try to crush Sonic, and Eggman's in one of them, and 4 electric balls will spawn that aren't really all that hard to dodge if you watch how they spawn. It only takes the usual 8 hits. Man, I should probably mention that shit. And down goes Eggman, and you even get one final hit in as he tries to fly away. Woo! There isn't really much else happening here except for Sonic going back to Green Hill Zone to celebrate his victory. A different animation would play out here if I got all the Chaos Emeralds, but I fucked up on the very last one on the very last chance I had, so thanks, game. It just makes larger flowers appear if you're wondering what happened, so there's no even real reason to get the Chaos Emeralds except for bragging rights. And with the credit roll, the first Sonic the Hedgehog game comes to an end. It's an alright platformer that establishes the game engine for what's to come. Though if you want to play the game now, play any other re-release that has the spin dash implemented for an easier time. While the original version is playable, it is definitely the most skippable entry in the classic series in my opinion. There is one other thing I do want to talk about before ending this video, and that's other version differences. I'm primarily going to use this space to talk about the mobile version of the game, which comes with an improved frame rate and some more frames of animation on several objects, like the rings and Eggman's wrecking ball looking like it's actually swinging in the air, and some boss rebalancing and whatnot. I should have probably said that in the script, but oh well, I'll wing that one. The game controls fairly well even when using touch controls, though I will say the form factor of a smartphone works much better than, say, a tablet due to the size. I also apologize for the on-screen controls in the footage. I forgot to turn those off by accident. The rotation effect in the special stages is much smoother, unlike the choppy original, which can throw someone off if they're used to the original's way of rotating the stage. There were also more characters added to the game, though I'll explain them in the upcoming games they were debuted in, So that means I'll talk about Tails in Sonic 2 and Knuckles in Sonic 3 when that rolls around. If there's one last thing I could say about this version, it's that I really want this version of Sonic 1 to come to a modern console, or PC for fuck's sake. I personally hope you enjoyed my look into Sonic the Hedgehog, and the next video of this kind will keep the Sonic train rolling. I plan to go through Sonic 2, CD, 3, and Mania with one extra bonus video on the side. I'm hoping to have one of these out every month, but if it looks like I could make one even earlier than that, that'd be cool. But I'm just gonna try and shoot for a monthly scripted video for now. So with that, I'm a Nick, and I'll see you guys next time.